Hey, how's it going? I hope you're having a good day. It's about to get even better because I'm about to teach you how to fillet crochet. I've been seeing fillet crochet in all the places that matter most to me, which is TikTok and Pinterest. I keep seeing people adding the cutest fillet crochet charts to clothing items, but they're not explaining how they did it. And I have been looking high and low for tutorials on how to do this, and I just can't seem to find anything. I can find tutorials on how to do fillet crochet and how to read the charts, but not how to actually use it for clothing. So I'm going to show you how to do that and everything that I learned along the way. Also, before we get started, I just really quickly want to say thank you for 100 subscribers. That's so random and so quick, and I'm so grateful. I really appreciate it. I love that you guys are loving my patterns so far, and I hope that I can keep bringing you things that you enjoy. If you are new here and this is your very first video that you're watching, welcome. I hope you decide to stay. If you love to make your own clothes and you have been looking high and low for modern crochet patterns, you have come to the right place. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Also, one last thing before we get into it, I do have a website called Misra. This is just where I sell all of my other patterns that are designed from scratch or take a little bit longer for me to produce. Feel free to have a browse. I might even have a cheeky discount code for you. If you already know how to fillet crochet, just go to this timestamp here. It'll take you straight to the pattern. However, if you've never done it before, I highly recommend listening to the tips that I have for you before you get started. Without further ado, let's just get into it. Okay, so first things first, how do you actually even read these charts? In fillet crochet, one box is worth 3 stitches. Fillet crochet is generally done in a double crochet mesh stitch. And the way that you read these charts is that an empty box will be 1 double crochet, 2 chains, 1 double crochet. Full box will be 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets in the center, and then 1 double crochet on the outside. However, each box is still worth 3 stitches. So when you read a fillet crochet chart, say it has 27 boxes in the picture, that will be 3 stitches per box. So it will actually be 27 times 3. So this leads to my first tip when it comes to fillet crochet, which is to treat it as its own panel. What I mean by this is try not to manipulate that chart into a certain form. So for me, this top that I've created that I'm going to show you how to do, the fillet crochet part is its own panel. I've just done one big fillet crochet square and then I've worked around that. So I recommend not trying to add increases or decreases to your fillet crochet chart. It's just going to make it a lot more complicated for you, especially if you're a beginner. Also, a general rule of thumb, this usually applies to most crochet projects anyway, but it's especially important in fillet crochet. The bigger the hook that you use and the thicker the yarn that you use, the bigger your design is going to end up. So if you're looking for a really intricate, detailed design, you're better off to size down your hook and your yarn. I recommend sticking to like square charts, maybe rectangular, but just again, keep in mind it's going to be multiplied by 3. So something that you think is going to be this big will actually end up being this big. So just keep that in mind. My final tips before we get started are pretty simple, but they go a long way. First of all, I recommend printing out your chart and crossing off each box as you go along. This will just help you keep track and make sure that you don't accidentally put the wrong amount of stitches in the wrong section. I also recommend using stitch markers to mark your beginning and end stitches. It just helps you keep track so much easier. And also, I recommend adding an extra row of blank boxes to the outside of your chart if your chart doesn't already have that. The chart that I used for this project already had a blank row of squares around the perimeter of the chart anyway. I recommend considering doing that as well. It just makes it so much easier. You know where your beginning and end stitches are. You know that you should have an empty box at the beginning and end of each row. That's generally all you really need to know going into fillet crochet. Again, I'm going to show you how you can mold this into a clothing item. If you have any other questions at all, if I've missed anything, if anything is confusing you, please always just comment down below. I'll always reply and try to be as helpful as I possibly can. Please remember, I'm only a human being, so I might get things wrong sometimes. So I'm going to show you how to create the top now. I will also put down below the chart that I used if you want to use the exact same one as me. The one that I got from Pinterest also had, I think, 5 other designs around it. So you could use one of those if you want, because they're all the same measurements as my current graph. Yeah, that's everything. And let's get into it. Okay, so before I show you how to actually start your foundation for this panel, I just want to quickly run you through how mine has ended up. So this is my final panel. It is 18 inches wide and 10.5 inches long. And for your reference, I'm a size 10 in Australian women's. This fits me perfectly across the front of my torso, and it sits at the top of my hips up until about the middle of my chest. So if you're looking for that exact same sizing and you are also the same size as me, you can go ahead and just follow this tutorial exactly as I'm going to show it to you. However, if you are a different size to me, that's totally fine. What I recommend doing is, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, either sizing up or sizing down in your hook and yarn. This will give you just a smaller gauge on your panel. And then prior to actually commencing the panel, I would also recommend doing a 4x4 gauge swatch and entering that into a gauge calculator just to make sure that it's going to fit your measurements. I'll link in the description a gauge calculator that you can use, and if you don't really understand how to use it, I'll also pop a tutorial in the description of how you can understand gauge swatches. This is also important if you want to do the exact same chart as me or something with the exact same amount of boxes as my chart. If you're wanting to make the exact same top as me, I do recommend using one of the grids that I am going to put in the description because it has the exact same amount of boxes and stitches as my panel does. If you are looking to apply a different chart to this process, that's totally fine. But again, a gauge swatch is going to be your best friend. You need to just make sure that it's going to fit where my panel fits me. I just wanted to give you that reference. Please do a gauge swatch before you get started. If you are a different size to me, it will just make your life so much easier. Okay, so for this tutorial today, I'm going to basically repeat the exact process that I did for my initial design. In that design, I used 100% acrylic 8-ply yarn and a 3mm hook. I've created this diagram here so that you can calculate how many stitches you'll need to do in your foundation chain according to the amount of boxes that are in a filet crochet chart. I'll just quickly explain this diagram to you because you can use this for any filet crochet chart. I've color coded this so that it's easier for you to understand as well. So everything in black is showing you the amount of boxes that I have in a row, and in the purple color we have the amount of stitches according to the amount of boxes that we have in a row. So as I explained in the beginning of this video as well, one box in a filet crochet chart is worth 3 stitches. So I've just multiplied the amount of boxes that I have by 3, and then I've also added 4 stitches for a turning chain at the end of that. So my foundation chain for this will be 81 plus 4, so 85 stitches total. So once you've got your foundation chain, you're going to want to double crochet into the 7th stitch from the hook. I'm going to be working into these back loops here. I'm just going to count down to my 7th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to do a double crochet into this loop right here, and that will give you your first box in the row. So as you can see, you'll have your 2 chains here, your 2 chains here, and then these extra 2 chains right here are working as a double crochet. I would recommend going ahead and marking the stitch that you're going to be working into later on. So as you know, each box should have 2 stitches in the center. So you'll have 1, 2, and this 3rd stitch here will be the one that you're going to work into later on. So this whole row will just be empty boxes like this. So in order to do that, you're just going to chain 2, skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and do a double crochet into this 3rd stitch here. And you're going to repeat this process all the way to the end. If you've done your calculations correctly, you should have the amount of boxes in a row that you have in your filet crochet chart. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my full row and I've got 27 boxes here total. So now I'm going to start actually following my chart. So I'll just quickly pop my iPad here so that you can see what I'm actually doing as I'm going along. Hopefully you can see that. So as you can see here, I've got my chart and I've just popped down below how many rows I've got here. So I've just done this entire row here down the bottom where my numbers are. So the way that you're going to follow this chart is basically you'll start this way, and then once you get to the end of this row, you're going to turn and you'll be working this way. So you'll just be alternating which way you're reading the chart. This chart is obviously a mirror image of itself. Everything's symmetrical, so it's basically going to be the same either way. But if you are following a chart that is not symmetrical, that's how you're going to read it. So it's going to start off with this way, and then you will turn your work and you'll start reading it from this way. So I'll do the first 2 rows with you so that you can see what I mean. And then from there on out, you should be fine to get going by yourself. So as you can see in my design here, I have an empty box in the very first box of this row. I'm going to turn the work. I'm going to chain 4. So this creates that double crochet and then the 2 chains in the center. And then I'm going to double crochet into that first double crochet, and that creates an empty box. However, if you are not following along with that, you can do a full box at the beginning as well. So you would turn the work and you would chain 2 to start that first double crochet. And instead of doing the extra 2 chains, you would just do a double crochet into this first stitch, a double crochet into the next stitch, and then you would do a double crochet in that first double crochet there. If your chart starts with a full box in the beginning of the row, that's how you would start that. But mine starts with an empty box. And then the box next to it is also empty, so I'm just going to chain 2 to skip this section and double crochet straight into that next double crochet. And I'm just going to cross these first 2 boxes off. The next box is full, so in order to do that, you will double crochet into this stitch here and into the next stitch and then into that double crochet. So it's really just doing either 2 double crochets in that center if it's a full box, or just chaining 2 to skip it if it's an empty box. And my next 5 boxes are empty. So I've got my 5 empty boxes now, so I can cross those off. So as you can see, this design is starting to now mimic what we have here. So I'm going to finish this row and then I will show you how you will read it in the opposite way. Okay, so I'm at the end of my first row. So now I'm going to show you how to turn the work and read it the other way. So you're just going to turn the work. We are now going to be reading the chart this way. So we'll be going from right to left instead of left to right. So as you can see here, it's an empty box and then I've got 3 full boxes and I'm just going to continue following until I reach the end here. So again, to start that empty box, I'm just going to chain 4 and do a double crochet into that first one. Also, if you'd like to keep track of which stitch you're going to be working into once you reach the end, it's going to be the second chain that you do. So these 2 chains here will work as your center 2 chains, and this chain here will work as the top of a double crochet. And I'm also just going to pop a marker into this one here. So again, it will be the second chain up. So 1, 2. So now that I have done this first empty box here, I am going to do these 3 filled boxes. And that is 3 there. So the way that you can tell that you've done the correct amount of stitches for each box is that each box should finish and end with a stitch connected to these double crochets. As you can see here, this is one box here. You've got the 2 stitches in between the outside stitches. This is one box here. Again, you've got the 2 stitches and then your outside stitches. And then this is one box here. So you've got your 2 stitches connected to your outside stitches. So if you ever get confused, just have a look and see if there's a full border. Now I've got 3 empty boxes and it's basically just going to be repeating this process for this entire chart. I will show you when I get to the end of this row how I'm going to join it to this stitch here. Okay, so I have done my full row. So I'm just going to quickly cross them off. And coming up to this last box here, it's an empty one. So I'm just going to do a double crochet into the third one. So if this marker wasn't here, I would just count 1, 2, 3 and do a double crochet into that stitch right there. And that creates our final box. If it was a full box, you would just do a double crochet into this stitch here, a double crochet into the next one, and a double crochet into that third stitch here. And that would give you your final box. So that is how you do filet crochet and how you read the chart and act according to it. So I'm going to now leave you to do your entire chart, and once you've done that, I will show you how you can create a top out of it. Okay, so I have completed my filet crochet panel. So now what I'm going to be doing is 3 rows of single crochet along here. And we need to make sure that we have the right amount of stitches in order to do the next stitch that we're going to be doing after these 3 single crochet rows. So what we'll be doing after the rows of the single crochets is a normal double crochet mesh stitch. So all that means is that instead of having the 2 chains in between your double crochets, you'll just have 1 chain in between them. In order to do that stitch, you need to have an uneven amount of numbers. So you need to count the amount of stitches you have along the top here from beginning to end where your stitch marker is. And if you have an uneven number, that's fine. You can go ahead and just do a normal single crochet along the top. If you have an even amount of stitches though, you will need to do a decrease, and I recommend doing it in your center stitch here in these 2 stitches right in the middle. If you're following along with me, you will have 82 stitches along the top. This is because of your turning chain that you have here. So you still do have those 81 stitches that we started with that I explained at the beginning of the video. However, because we are using this turning chain, when it comes to our single crochet row, we will now have 82 stitches. So what we'll need to do is a decrease in the center. So I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to be using different colors for the different sections that I'm doing, just so that you can see clearly what I'm doing, but you can obviously keep with the same color. So you're just going to chain 1 and turn the work, and then you're going to do a single crochet in this stitch right here. So you're just going to do a single crochet in the very first stitch and then pop your stitch marker in. And we are literally just going to do single crochet into each stitch. So in here and in here. And just keep single crocheting until you come to your center 2 stitches. I'm at my center 2 stitches now, so I'm just going to quickly do a decrease. So the way you do that is just inserting your hook, pulling up a loop, and then inserting it straight into the next stitch, pulling up a loop, and then pulling through all 3, and that's created a decrease for you. Now I'm just going to single crochet as normal into each stitch up until the end. So I'll be stitching into this stitch here that my stitch marker is in, and then after you've done this row, whether or not you've done a decrease, you're just going to do normal single crochet for 2 more rows, and I will meet you back here once you have 3 rows total of single crochet. Okay, so I have my 3 rows of single crochet here, as you can see along here, and because we did that decrease in the first row, I now have the perfect amount of rows in order to do the next stitch. So in order to do this next step, you're just going to chain 3 and turn your work, and you're going to start doing your double crochet mesh stitch. So you just want to skip this first stitch here and double crochet straight into that second one, and then you just want to chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet into here. You will put your stitch marker in this chain here. So you've got 1, 2, 3. You want to put it in the second chain of your turning chain. So I'm just going to continue doing this process until I get to the end of this row. And at the end here, you're just going to chain 3, turn the work, and repeat the process. And you're going to do this for 3 rows. And then I will meet you back here because we will start doing a decrease to create the shape of the top half of your panel. Okay, so I've now done my 3 rows of my normal double crochet mesh stitch. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start decreasing. So if you look closely in my original design, you can see that the front panel starts to kind of curve in around here and come up. So in order to get that shaping around your arms, we're going to do 5 rows that include decreases on both ends. So in order to do that, you're going to turn your work. You're going to chain 3 as usual. And then you're going to yarn over, skip this stitch here, insert your hook, and we're basically going to do a decrease. So you're going to yarn over and pull through 2, and then instead of finishing off that double crochet, you're going to yarn over and insert your hook into the next double crochet, and then you're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. And that will basically just create a decrease at this end. And then you are just going to repeat your normal double crochet mesh stitch until you reach your final 3 double crochets. So once you get to this end and you have 3 double crochets left, I will show you how to do a decrease there. Okay, so I'm at my final 3 stitches here. So I'm just going to do a decrease just like I did on this end here. So you can see that triangle there. That is your decrease. So in order to do that, I'm just going to chain 1, insert my hook here, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3. And that's created that decrease there. And then I'm just going to do my final stitch. So I'm going to just repeat this exact process now for 5 rows total. So you'll just do your normal double crochet mesh stitch with a decrease at the beginning and end of each row for 5 rows. Okay, so I've done my 5 rows with my decreases at the beginning and end. So now we are just going to continue on with our normal double crochet mesh stitch. So you won't need to be doing any more decreases for now. You're going to want to do enough rows until it reaches the base of your neck or just around where your collarbones are. I'll again put a photo on the screen so you can see where mine sits. For me, that will be 8 more rows of double crochet mesh stitch to reach that point. it could be more or less for you. So just make sure that you keep holding this panel up against your body so that you can determine exactly how many rows that you need. So once you've done the correct amount of rows to reach the base of your neck, we're going to start working on the straps. You're going to want to mark 5 boxes in. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to mark this double crochet right here. And then we're going to mark 5 boxes in from the other end as well. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll mark this double crochet. And basically this is just giving us a guideline of where we are going to be crocheting. So we'll start on this end because that's where the yarn is already connected to. And then I will come back and show you how you can reconnect the yarn to this side. So once you've marked your stitches, you're going to turn the work. You're going to chain 3 as normal. And do your double crochets as normal as well. And then once you reach this stitch marker, you're just going to do a decrease just to create a more rounded neckline. So in order to do that, you'll just do yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert into this double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 3. So then you're just going to turn the work again, chain 3, and double crochet into that stitch there. And then basically you'll just be doing back and forth double crochet mesh stitch for 4 rows total. So including that row that you've just done with the decrease, you should have 4 rows total. Okay, so I've done enough rows. I'm just going to chain 1, cut the yarn and pull it through to fasten off. And now I'm going to just rejoin the yarn on this end here. So in order to find where you're going to reattach the yarn, you're just going to want to find your turning chain here, which is that 3 chain. So you've got 1, 2, and 3. You're going to want to reattach the yarn into this second chain. So just pull the yarn through and tie a knot. And then insert your hook into that same spot and repeat exactly what you did for the other strap. So now that I've done my 4 rows on the other end, I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. And that there is your front panel all done. So your back panel will kind of be this shape. I'll put it on the screen here so that you can see how it's supposed to fit across your back. So we're going to be creating kind of like an arch for this panel here. And then this top half will be almost exactly the same, but just a couple of minor changes. So you are going to be doing the exact same amount of stitches as you have in your front panel here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And basically this time around, instead of working from the bottom up, we're going to be working from the top down. This just means that we're going to be working the arch from up here and then working down like this instead of working around like that. So like you started with the front panel, you're going to do a double crochet into the 7th stitch from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you're going to repeat the same process that you did for your front panel, just for 1 row. So you're just going to chain 2, skip 2 stitches and double crochet into the 3rd stitch. And you're just going to repeat that process for 1 row only. Okay, so I have my full first row here. So now what we want to do is split the amount of boxes that we have into thirds, or as close to thirds as you can get. We are basically going to mark a third of the way in from either end. So for me, I have 27 stitches, so I'll be marking 9 stitches in. If you don't have a number that is divisible by 3, that's totally fine. Just try and give more stitches to your outside than the inside and make sure that you have an even number marked on either side. So for me, I'm going to be doing 9. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll mark this one right here. And then on this side, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll mark. So I'm going to decrease for 4 rows until I have 5 boxes on either side. This part of the pattern you can really alter to whatever fit that you would like at the back of your top. We're going to do a similar thing to what we did with the front straps, which is where you do one side first and then cut the yarn off and reconnect it on the other side and do the other side exactly the same. So we're going to turn the work, chain 4, and do our normal stitching up until 2 double crochets before our stitch marker. So I'm at my final 2 double crochets here, so I'm going to chain 2, yarn over, insert the hook here, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over through 2, and then we'll yarn over, go into that marked stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through all 3. That creates our first decrease. Then we're going to turn the work, and in order to get a decrease in the exact same spot here, we are just going to chain 2 instead of 4 and do a double crochet straight into that next stitch, and that will create that illusion of the exact same shape as this decrease here. And then we're just going to continue as normal. So I'm going to do 4 rows total of decreasing so that I have 5 boxes left. You can do more or less depending on the sizing of your panel, but that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've done my 4 rows of decreases, so now I have 5 boxes left. So I'm now just going to repeat rows of this mesh stitch without any decreases until I reach the same amount of rows that I have in my front panel, which is 27 rows in total. So that includes these 5 rows that I've already done here. So you're just going to do your normal stitches until you reach the same length as your front panel. So what you're going to do once you get to the end of this side is fasten off the yarn like you did for the front strap, and you're going to rejoin your yarn on this side in the 3rd stitch from this double crochet. So you'll have 1, 2, 3. That's where you're going to reconnect your yarn to, and you're basically just going to repeat this exact same process. So I'll see you once you've got your back panel done. Okay, so I have this entire section done now. So now we're basically going to repeat what we did on the front but on the back here. So basically we're going to do our 3 rows of single crochet along the top here. Remember, if you did a decrease on your front panel in your rows of single crochet, remember to do it here in the exact same spot as well. So I'm just going to rejoin the yarn here where my very first stitch is. And I'm going to repeat the exact same process that I did on the front panel. So I'm going to do 3 rows of single crochet. And for me, I had a decrease in the center here. So I've just marked that center square so I know where I'm supposed to be doing my decrease. So I'm going to do my 3 rows of single crochet now, and then I will meet you back here once you've done that. Okay, so now for this panel that we're going to do on the back, we're going to repeat the exact same process that we did for this section, except for up here, instead of doing 4 rows for our strap, we're just going to do 2 rows for our strap. So go ahead and do exactly what you did for the front panel on the back panel, and I will meet you when you get to this point here for your straps. So I have repeated the process of exactly what I did on my front panel, except when it came to these rows of normal double crochet mesh stitch with no decreases, I added 2 rows. So I've taken 2 rows off of my straps and added those 2 rows onto these normal rows. So in my front panel, I have 8 rows with no decreases, and on my back panel I have 10 rows. So now I'm going to mark the exact same amount of stitches that I marked inwards on my front panel. So my straps are, as you know, 5 boxes wide. So I'm going to mark those in. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to repeat exactly what I did for the straps on the front, except it will only be 2 rows this time. So it'll just be 1, 2, 3 for your turning chain. And then when you reach this marker here, you're just going to do a decrease. You're going to chain 3, turn the work, do your 5 boxes, and that's it for these straps on the back. So I'm now just going to fasten off from this strap, and I'm going to rejoin the yarn on this side. It'll be the 2nd stitch from this double crochet, so it'll be 1, 2. So in here is where I'm going to rejoin my yarn, and I'm just going to repeat exactly what I did on this side, and then I will fasten off, and I will meet you back here to join the panels together. Okay, so we have our 2 panels, so now we are just going to join them together. Joining these panels together is actually super easy because everything is exactly the same, and you're going to start joining from your single crochet row and work your way down. So I like to join my panels together with a single crochet seam, and basically what I'm going to do is for each single crochet row here, it's going to be worth 1 single crochet, and then I'm going to do 2 single crochets through the boxes on both sides for each box all the way down to the end. So I'll show you what I mean. So because we have the exact same amount of boxes on both sides, everything will line up perfectly, and it should be really easy for you to keep track of where you are at. So I'm going to reattach my yarn here in this first single crochet and push that through the other side as well. And I'm just going to do 1 chain in this first single crochet just to get started. And then I'll insert my hook into the second row on both sides, do a single crochet, insert it into the third row on both sides, do a single crochet. Just make sure all of your tails are on the outside during this part, just so that they don't poke out of the front. So now I'm going to single crochet along this mesh stitch. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do 2 single crochets per box. So I'll insert my hook into the box, do a single crochet, and insert it again and do another single crochet. And then I'll do that in the next box. And I'm going to do that all the way down to the end. And then I'm going to fasten off, rejoin the yarn the exact same way on the other side and do it exactly the same on the other side. So go ahead and do those 2 sides, and then I'll come back and meet you to join the straps together. Okay, so now that my back panel is completely joined together, I'm just going to join these straps together now. You should have the exact same amount of boxes in your straps, so it'll be fairly easy to join up. There will be clear stitches in the top for you to go into. For this step, I recommend marking your final stitches together so you know exactly where you're finishing off. So I'm going to rejoin the yarn. And again, I'm just going to be doing a single crochet seam along this top here. You want to go into the actual stitches for this part, not into the square. It'll just give you a much nicer finish. You just want to do this all the way along the top, and then you're going to fasten off as normal, rejoin the yarn to the other side and do the exact same process. And then your entire top will be joined together, and then all we need to do is the back drawstring. Okay, so what you want to do now is just turn your top inside out, and we're going to be creating the drawstring that's going to be pulled through this center panel here. So just grab your yarn, chain about 200 or more if you feel like you need more. Remember, it's going to be pulled in multiple directions, so it will shorten the length of the chain that you're creating. So just go ahead and chain a really long chain, about 1 meter long. And then I will meet you back here when we are going to thread it through the top. Okay, so now you should have your super long chain. So we are going to start just threading it through these boxes here. I'm going to insert my first one 3 rows down, so in this first decrease here. So I'm going to go through the top and pull the other side through the exact same spot, so this one here. And we're basically just going to do this like a corset. So I'm going to have one side that will go over and one side that will go under. I'm going to go every 4 rows down. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is just a rough estimate. It's not really that big of a deal if it's not exact. Just make sure that you mirror it on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm not going to join these to the bottom one here. You obviously can do that, but I just find it sits so much better on my body when I tie it up here. So yeah, once you've done that, that's your top completed. You just need to weave in your ends and then you're done.